So you've heard a lot of reference or technique videos about osteotomy, the importance of malalignment, and at least personally, and I've been doing this for almost 20 years, my threshold of doing osteotomies has come down. I think osteotomies are very powerful procedures. They're great procedures. It can be difficult to convince patients that this is the right thing because it seems, at least in the US, it seems like this. I've heard patients say, this is a crazy thing, you want to break my leg. But it is a very good operation. So hopefully I can, for those of you who don't do them, maybe I can convince you to do them or to do them more. So who do we do these for? Most commonly we do them for pain from meniscal deficiency, cartilage defects, or arthritis. And you see this is a patient example on the left. This is someone who had meniscal deficiency. They don't have any arthritis, but they had varus malalignment, so they overloaded the medial compartment. The patient in the middle, she has hypophosphatemic rickets, so she was born fairly short, big varus deformity bilaterally. The clinical pictures after she had an HTO on the right leg, and she was in pre-op holding essentially for an HTO on the left. The contraindications make sense. If there's lateral compartment disease, I would be very reluctant to do an osteotomy because you unload the medial side by loading the lateral side. I always get an MRI scan. I want to know pre-op if there's a problem. I know some people do an arthroscopy to start the procedure and then make the decision, but it's always difficult for patients to plan on a recovery after an osteotomy and then be told, you were not a candidate. So that's why I always get an MRI scan so I can plan ahead, tell patients what to expect. Patellofemoral compartment disease is not really a contraindication. So if, similar to medial unicompartmental knee replacement, if you see someone who has patellofemoral chondrosis, as long as their main pain is not anteriorly, as long as their main pain is medial, I would still not rule them out as a candidate. And sometimes I use a medial unloader brace just to trial this. There's a cost involved. I know that can be a problem. But if I have someone, and it's not just medial pain, not just anterior pain, it's sort of this antemedial pain, and sometimes I put them in a medial unloader brace, give them a month, maybe 2 months, and see if they get improvement in their symptoms, and if they do, they're a candidate for an osteotomy. How to do it? I always get alignment x-rays from hip to ankle. I don't believe that you can really calculate this properly and plan this properly on short knee x-rays, so I always get hip to ankle bilateral weight-bearing x-rays. And then I plan. I plan based on these x-rays, and I plan depending on what else I'm planning on doing. If this is someone who, as I showed you in the MRI before, just has medial meniscus deficiency, but they have no cartilage damage, no arthritis, then just overcorrecting them slightly might be enough. So in that case, I just plan for going to the lateral tibial spine. If I do this for true arthritis, significant joint space narrowing, then I would overcorrect slightly into the lateral compartment. So just go on the downslope. I don't believe in significantly more correction. The old literature suggested really going into the lateral compartment, but I think that is challenging. Significant valgus malalignment that you create with this is not well tolerated, and patients hate the cosmetic appearance. So what type of osteotomies? This is titled opening wedge osteotomies, and I would say for varus correction, I only do medial opening wedge osteotomy. I don't do lateral closing wedge. Why is this? It's technically safer, it's easier, you can titrate it, and it is much easier to revise this to a total knee than if you have a lateral closing wedge. In terms of the fixation system, I started my career using non-angle fixed plates, but I'm essentially now 100% using locking plates. They're much more forgiving, they're stronger, you worry less about loss of fixation and loss of realignment. So non-locking plates, I have not used in a long time. So how do I do an opening wedge osteotomy? First, you choose your incision, and most of these patients at some point will have a revision to a total knee replacement. So I always try and be kind for the next operation. I don't do hockey stick, I don't do oblique incisions, I do longitudinal incisions either a midline incision, that's rare. Usually it's more a paramedian incision through which I can do my osteotomy and somebody else can do a total knee later. There are many ways to deal with the medial soft tissues. I just show you my way. That's not necessarily the only way. I locate the pes. You see that on the right side. So the forceps are around the hamstrings. This is just like a hamstring harvest. Then I reflect the pes posteriorly. Underneath you can see the MCL pretty clearly. I make an incision with the bovie at the posterior edge along the fibers to the MCL, and I start doing my posterior dissection. It's much easier if you do this in a figure of 4 position. You can visualize this much easier. It takes the tension off. And I go with the bovie just a couple of centimeters in, hard on bone. And then the rest you can do with blunt dissection with your finger. I don't really want to do anything sharp in the back, including sharp cob elevators or anything like that. You can just use blunt retraction and dissection. I then put a retractor in. This is a malleable retractor that you see on that x-ray. That to me is the most versatile because I can bend it a little bit so that it's out of the way when I do my, my cut. And once you have this in place, once you see that the malleable crosses the midline, you know that your neurovascular bundle is safe. I usually do biplanar osteotomies where I do a countercut behind the tibial tubercle. So my true osteotomy is at the level of the tibial tubercle. If you look at the small fluor picture, you see how much proximal bone there is. It protects you from inadvertently the osteotomy going into the tibial plateau. It also allows you to put the plate a little bit more distal, which spares the deep MCL, and that avoids medial instability. Then I put a pin in. I aim for the waist of the fibular head, and then I cut the MCL at the level of the pin. I don't peel back the MCL. I do cut the superficial MCL. You open it up, and then you fix it again with the plate. So I haven't had medial instability by doing this. And in fact, there's studies that show that you need to release the MCL to decrease medial compartment pressures. And this shows you how to make that countercut behind the tibial tubercle. Opening this up, you do your cut, you see the retractor posteriorly to protect you, and then you can finish it with the osteotome. I always have my finger at the edge of the osteotome. That makes it safe, and then you know when you're over to the fibular head. Wedging open, I actually don't use this wedge anymore. I use stacked osteotomes. The first osteotome goes proximal, the second one distal, the third one between the two. That is by far the safest and gentlest way to open this up. And then you can do provisional fixation. You do your fluoro, you make sure your alignment is correct, and then you put the plate on at the end. I usually use a Tomofix because that's a larger and stronger plate. Bone grafting is optional. If I have someone who's older, maybe a little osteoporotic, smoker, I would have a pretty low threshold of bone grafting this, and I use autologous autograft from the distal femur. I have a few sort of complications and tips and tricks to avoid this, but we're out of time. If you have any more specific questions, maybe we can do that in our Q&A session. But overall, I would ask you to really consider osteotomy. It is a great, very powerful operation that can help patients for a long time. Thank you very much.